These Apple leaks are getting out of hand. Just a few days after my last report, there's a litany of new reports. In particular, Apple's 2020 iPhone lineup will now consist of 5 iPhones. Instead of the 4 earlier rumored, Apple is adding an additional 6.1 inch, and we've got the details here. Also an iPhone 9, which is going to be the SE2 technically, and the 2021 iPhone, Apple is removing the port. We're not even getting USB-C. They're going straight to a portless iPhone. The future is now, baby. Apple is not holding back in any way, and they're not afraid of change. Also, I'd like to say I'm doing a giveaway today. 5 AirPod Pros to celebrate the launch of our case. We're doing pre-orders on January 1st, and I couldn't be more excited. It took us almost a year to get here and about to launch. So to win one of those, you're going to follow Everything Apple Pro and Phone Rebel on Instagram. Links below. Drop a like and a comment on the latest post, and that's how you can win one of those. All right, let's get into the leaks. Let's begin with our legend, Ming-Chi Kuo. He's dropped a new report on Apple's upcoming 2020 year and 2021. It really starts to get crazy at that point. So instead of 4 iPhones, Apple will be launching 5 iPhones in 2020. So starting the year off in March with the iPhone SE2, which we're actually now hearing about from Mac Takara that it will be called the iPhone 9. And that makes ridiculous sense. I don't know why we couldn't have guessed that earlier, but the iPhone 9 actually makes sense as it's a successor to the iPhone 8. It'll look almost identical to it, aside from some internal changes with the logic board to accommodate for the Apple A13 and the updated LCP antennas. It'll basically be the iPhone 8 body, so it makes sense to succeed it with an iPhone 9 label. Now, Ming-Chi Kuo is confirming that one is happening again in March, so in Q1 of 2020. And as for the other models, which will be launching in the fall, all of them will support 5G technology. The difference between them will be camera technology. So Apple will be launching a 5.4 inch, 2 6.1 inch models, and of course the huge 6.7 inch model. Now, Ming-Chi Kuo details that the Pro models will be the 6.1 and 6.7 inch. So the 5.4 inch will not be a Pro model any longer. Apple is separating the lineup here, and then of course the base model 6.1 inch will not be a Pro model either. It's interesting now that Pro will go to a larger phone size. Between 6.1 or 6.7 inches, you will no longer be able to get the same features on a smaller phone. It's an all-new strategy for Apple, and the 5.4 inch will now have a dual lens camera on the back. It's going to be Apple's smallest iPhone in quite some time, but it will not be their best iPhone they're releasing in 2020. So in order to get the rear 3D sensor and the triple lens cameras, you're going to have to go with the 6.1 or 6.7 inch iPhone 12 Pros likely. And looking past that, in 2021, Ming-Chi Kuo reports that the follow-up to the new redesign in 2020, at least one of the iPhone models, the high-end model, will not have a Lightning port whatsoever. Apple will be releasing an iPhone with no ports for a true wireless experience. This is coming from Ming-Chi Kuo, so there's certainly weight there. We've heard this rumor also from Ben Geskin that Apple is looking at ultra-wideband technology to replace the Lightning port eventually, and now it seems it's happening sooner than later. I would have never thought that 2021 would be the year, but it looks like Apple is confident in their technology. It's likely 2020 iPhones will upgrade the wireless capabilities even further, wireless charging, so they're confident enough to remove that port. And what's strange is they're not doing it on the entire lineup. Just on one high-end model. Is Apple not confident enough that people will like that? Or is it that they had to remove the port to make room for some new technology on the 2021 high-end iPhone? I guess we'll see. Very exciting prospect. Personally, I rarely use my port, wireless charging at night, wireless connectivity with all of my accessories. Some people, a small amount, would tolerate that. I know that majority of people instantly started complaining online saying they need a port. We're not ready for this future, but people said that about the headphone jack too, and then everybody adjusted. So we'll see how that unfolds, but it's interesting that it's happening sooner than later. Also, what's sad about that is that we're not going to be seeing a USB-C iPhone after all. There have been many rumors earlier in 2018 that in 2019, 2020, Apple would be switching over to USB-C. Unfortunately, there hasn't been any news on that whatsoever, so it's likely Apple will skip the USB-C phase and go straight to portless. Now, that's the future, all right. Now, Ben Geskin also raises a very interesting question. Since Apple will not have any ports on this phone, in the box, will we see a wireless charger with Apple's branding on it and possibly AirPods? The rumor that Apple will be including them in the box sort of makes sense now because you don't have anywhere to plug in your wired lightning earpods. So AirPods kind of makes sense still, or knowing Apple, they'd likely not have anything at all in the box and just lower the price or keep it somewhat reasonable. Okay, that's a joke. It won't be, but they likely will not have anything in the box and you'll just buy it separate if you want it. And lastly, in the report, Ming-Chi Kuo mentions Apple will be following up to the iPhone SE2 with an iPhone SE2 Plus model in 2021, likely the iPhone 9 Plus with what we just learned from Mac Takara. It will not have a home button. It will be a full screen display with a 5.5 or a 6.1 inch display and no Face ID system, meaning no notch needed on the top, but instead, very unusual for Apple, they'll be incorporating the Touch ID module into the power button on the side. That's very strange, but again, we've got time. We'll learn more about this device until 2021. It will likely be a budget end model. It would be cool though to see a no-notch iPhone, especially on a cheaper budget model like the iPhone SE2 Plus. Man, I can't believe I'm even saying these things. Like, we're almost living in the future. How far Apple has come, man. I've been reporting on these leaks for so long, and it's crazy that they just keep happening. And we may see the resurgence of Touch ID in the 2020 iPhone as previously reported. Now, Economic Daily News is reporting that Apple has met with a touchscreen supplier, GIS, to discuss shipping an iPhone with an embedded fingerprint sensor as soon as 2020. And this would be using Qualcomm's latest technology. They just announced it. It's an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor that's 17 times larger than what you'd find in the Galaxy S10. 20 by 30 millimeters surface area, so you'd have more of an area to scan your fingerprint, but it wouldn't cover the entire surface of the phone, as earlier reports from Bloomberg, Barclays, and Ming-Chi Kuo have suggested. There's a lot of word regarding the fact that Apple will be launching at least one iPhone with a fingerprint sensor in 2020, and this is just the latest article to add to that list. So the lineup is going to be very, very interesting. Apple is separating their iPhones more than they have in the past, and it's likely that this technology could arrive on the 6.7-inch iPhone as a flagship standalone feature. And to add fuel to that fire, Ben Geskin is claiming in a tweet that Apple is testing an iPhone codenamed D53 with no notch whatsoever and with a vertical mute switch, a feature that was rumored for the 2019 iPhones, potentially could have been for the 2020 iPhones. He also says it's running an internal version of iOS 14. And this is coming from a source that leaked some iOS 13 stuff regarding the volume HUD earlier, so there's some weight behind it. Again, it's just rumors, but Apple, of course, is experimenting on an iPhone without a notch, and you'd hope it'd come sooner than later. But whenever it does, you know it's going to be beautiful. In an interview with PC Magazine, Qualcomm's president mentioned that their #1 priority as a company is to help Apple launch their 5G iPhone as soon as possible. And we already knew this. They're going to be using the new X55 modems. But what's interesting from that interview is that Qualcomm was unable to tweak some of the features on their modem because Apple had locked in the features as early as 18 months ago. Apple's development cycles are just insane. They're working on the iPhone, upcoming iPhones, years in advance, and they already know which features they're going to get. Of course, they probably tweak them with time, but it's very interesting to get a peek behind that curtain at Apple's development process. Now, there's been some crazy news in the world of miniaturization. Not only is Apple's logic board on the iPhone 12 getting even more dense with a triple stack layout, as reported by Ben Geskin, now Nikkei is reporting that one of Apple's capacitor suppliers, Murata Manufacturing, has been able to shrink one of their capacitors to 1/5 the current size, but deliver 10 times the electrical storage. This is in an effort to make logic boards even more dense to accommodate for 5G technology, because you will need a bigger battery, you will need beefier antennas, you'll need more room inside many phones, and it's assumed that Apple will be using this technology in their upcoming iPhone. We've also got some iOS 14 news by Mark Gurman of Bloomberg. Apparently, Apple will be overhauling the way that they develop and test software internally to provide a better product for you, starting with iOS 14. Because of iOS 13's very rocky release and the amount of patches it's had, I mean, more than any other iOS version in the very beginning, Apple will be changing the way that they develop software by allowing developers to actually disable certain parts of iOS, new features that are added in daily builds, using a new feature called flags. Now, this will ensure that you, as a customer, you receive a better product because they'll be able to actually isolate issues and bugs better by being able to turn off certain features and seeing how iOS reacts as a result. He also mentions that iOS 14 is internally called Azul, and some of the features from iOS 14 were delayed until iOS 15 in 2021, which is called Azul Plus 1 internally. But he says not to worry, as iOS 14 will be at least as big as iOS 13 feature-wise. And that's amazing because that was a huge release. I'm excited for that. He also does mention in that article that Apple is already planning a spring upgrade, likely iOS 13.4, in order to fix further bugs and likely add a couple more features. We're getting more and more advanced, 2020, 2021, and Apple is just not stopping this iPhone innovation train. I'm so excited for the products to come. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it. Remember, I am doing a giveaway. Instructions down below. Follow Phone Rebel and Everything Apple Pro on Instagram, and like and comment on the latest posts. All right, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.
如果喜欢阿布安的内容，不妨动动小手点个关注，这样就可以获得科技产品相关的及时推送。欢迎各位同学投币、点赞以及转发。你们的每一个点赞、评论、转发都是对我最大的鼓励。我们下期视频再见。